Hey, everybody. In anticipation of Pinky Swear's release, I have invited some of my favorite author friends to come and offer a Pinky Swear confession. So today's guest is Tessa Wegert. Tessa is the critically acclaimed author of the Sheena Merchant series, as well as the North Country series, beginning with her newest In the Bones. Her books have received numerous starred reviews and have been featured on PBS and NPR radio. A former journalist and copywriter, Tessa grew up in Quebec and now lives with her husband and children in Connecticut, where she co-founded Sisters in Crime Connecticut and serves on the board of the International Thriller Writers. Tessa, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this because, as you know, I loved Pinky Swear. I got to read it way early. I got to read a couple different versions of
I
it,
know, I was
actually.
going to say, you've actually probably read more versions than almost anyone. Thank
I
you.
know, lucky me. And I love it so much. So this should be really fun.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with, your confession, a little, a secret you got caught, a lie you got caught in, a secret you didn't successfully keep. What have you got for us?
Okay, so I thought a long time about this because I wanted to say something that had already been like outed to the people involved. Not that I'm going to
Yes.
drop this on them and they're going to see this video and go, oh, interesting. So as you mentioned, I grew up in Quebec. I grew up in a really, really small town in Quebec. Not a lot to do, pretty rural. It's a university town, but very small university. And so, a lot of the time, a lot of the year, like especially in the summer, really tiny little population of locals, much like what I talk about in my books now, but that's a different area, but very similar kind of thing. So, because there wasn't that much to do, I ended up sneaking out of the house a lot at night to go not just down the street to a party, but like to get in a car with a friend and drive half an hour out into the countryside to like some gathering in a field somewhere in the pitch black with a bonfire. I mean, then I try to think in anticipation of talking with you how many times this happened. I don't even have a number. It was a regular occurrence. However, I felt so guilty about it. And I think I'm really just a good girl at heart that every time I did it, and I was like sneaking out of my bedroom window kind of thing. It wasn't out the back door. It was full on jumping into the hedges, running down the street before anyone could look outside and see me. I Every time I would do it, I would write a note and put it on my pillow for my parents in case they came into my room in the night and found me gone, because I was so concerned that they would be worried if they discovered that my bed was empty. And so I would write this note that basically said, listen, if you find this, I'm really sorry. You could punish me later. Everything is fine. I'll be back soon, kind of thing. So, and then as the years went on, my brother got involved in this too. We had a lot of mutual friends. He's a couple years younger than me, but we would kind of like sneak out together or meet up at these parties in the woods. And my parents never knew about it, never found out, never came in and found one of those notes, never said anything about it all these years. And then when I was maybe, I don't know, in my 30s or something like that and had kids of my own, there was a day where they were visiting and I was like, do they really not know? I'm really curious now that I have especially a daughter of my own who I know is going to be a teenager one day, who maybe could do something like this. I was dying to know if they had ever found out the truth. And I confessed it all to my mom, and she had no idea and was kind of annoyed and concerned, and then also kind of like entertained by the fact that I had left this note, in
Yes.
case, yeah, because I was just so worried about their reaction. But it
Well,
ended up being it like all is well that ends well. Nothing ever went awry. I wouldn't recommend it to
yes.
my kids, but
No, and also
it
it's
all
like the
worked out in the
beginning of
end,
a thriller novel that, I
right?
mean, the fact that you left the note is like the way you sort of like ruin the thriller novel because of course,
So
you're like you knew what you were going to be doing for your career even back then. You were like, I
yeah,
am not
yeah.
going to be a statistic or anything. My parents will know where I
No,
am if they come.
exactly. But the note sucks all the tension out of the scenario, doesn't
Yeah.
it? I
Yeah.
mean, you can't
Yeah.
have that. You've got to have the parents coming in and discover, like, oh my God, the bed is
Right.
in. What went wrong?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You ruined it which is good. In your own life, it's good to ruin suspense by like
Yes.
making sure somebody knows where you are. I think that's key. But yeah, no, that is so
Different
fun. I
story
can't
on the
believe they
page.
didn't know. I feel like I am like the mom who's like opening the doors and checking on people in the middle of the night.
Oh, me too. And I think it's because of that.
Ah,
Honestly, I think that experience shaped the mother that I am today.
yeah.
Because even now, like I've got my daughter home from college right now, I check on her and my son at least once or twice every single night. And it's been like that since they were little kids.
Yep.
And if they're in my house, I'm checking to make sure that everything is okay, that
Yep.
they're tucked in their beds, they're where they're supposed to be. So no one's pulling anything over on me, I'll tell you that
Yeah,
much.
and when they don't come home, like my son was at home for the holidays and he just went out with friends and then he decided to stay at a friend's house, which was smart. Like I think, but they've
Yeah.
been drinking or whatever. But I'm also like, you gotta text me. I wake up at 5 in the morning and I'm trying to like find his location and figure out where he is. I'm like, this is not okay. I know you're 24 years old, but it's not okay because your mother is here worrying about you. So
Oh yeah. And the location stuff, the GPS tracking stuff is such a game changer,
yeah,
right? Because back then, if there had been that kind of situation where my parents could just pick up a cell phone and look at, like they probably would have. They probably
right.
would have checked to make sure. I would assume. I mean, they can't have been completely clueless. They must have known things like this could happen where I would,
Yeah.
although I was pretty good at playing the good girl in my
Yeah.
kind of
You're a good
day-to-day
girl, like you
life.
said. I think at heart.
Yeah, so I think that's it. They trusted me, and so
Yeah.
they didn't even, it wasn't even on their radar that I could pull something like that
They had
off.
no reason not to trust you. And now
No,
they do, but now it's too late.
it was
Now you're
like
safe. That
like
is so
epic
funny.
level of duplicity going on for sure.
I mean, I'm glad they didn't know because if they had found out once, it would have ruined it for you and for your brother.
Oh my God, I know. Exactly. No, we were in it together, he and I. Yeah, all the
That's
friends. We had each
that's
other's backs, which brings me to a question for you about
okay.
Pinky Swear. So, one of the themes I think in the book is the idea of friends keeping secrets from their parents, the idea of them kind of banding together. The loyalty is to the friend group and not necessarily to the mothers and fathers, right? Because they're kind of concealing things. And then as they run into different situations, some of which are very traumatic, problematic, seems like it makes sense the last person you would go to, especially if it's something that you feel is kind of like shameful, you're not going to go to your parents. In many cases, kids just wouldn't at that
Yeah.
age go to their parents, right? So I'm curious to know how you shaped that, those relationships on the page, that kind of like synchronicity that they had and this kind of somewhat unspoken loyalty to each other, like this affinity for each other and this desire to keep their secrets really close to the vest.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I think this sort of goes back to what you're talking about. Like, it is the idea in my mind that if you have parents who would like talk to you about anything, or like who you felt like were kind of those parents, like we know, who they are. Like, I had friends who had those parents. I did not have those parents who were like
Yeah,
more like friends.
right.
Who were like, no matter what you do, I just want to make sure you make it home safe. I want you to be okay. You can call me, like that kind of parent, which
Yeah, total
I tried
transparency.
to, yeah,
Transparency.
I
Yeah,
tried to be that parent, but I did not have that parent. And whether or not I was that parent, I think it's also probably a challenge. But none of these girls had those parents, right?
right.
And all of them were really isolated in their home environments in different ways. And, Mara's older brother was kind of in, trouble from, so the parental sort of discipline was more focused on him. Also, that her parents fought all the time, so there was all this conflict in the home. So she just wanted, knew that she was better off just like hiding away in her room and staying away from them. And then Lexi's parents were almost not even interested in having a daughter. She was sort of a piece of furniture that they did their best to ignore. And then Kate's parents were very, very religious, which, had its own sort of pitfalls. So I think the three of them, and I think that kind of makes a difference. Like if you think about your family environment, had any of them had like a sibling that they were super close to, or a parent that was, approachable, I think the whole thing would have ended up really, really differently, right?
Yeah, and the fact that they all shared that common experience of having some distance between them and their parents growing up, it makes so much sense that they would look for that kind of connection elsewhere, right? And where do you find it when you're a teenage girl? Usually with other teenage girls, usually with your core clique of girls that are your ride to die people.
I think that's right. And it's funny, like, I think also, like, I think it's true. It was true of us too. You kind of find the people, it's not that any of their home environments were the same. They were all three very different, but equally kind of like they could each look at each other's family life and be like, well, that sucks, right? Mine
Right.
sucks, but so do those. And I think you find those people who sort of are, equally on the outs with it's sort of like your, the discomfort at home is equivalent, if not the same. And that's how, and I think that's how we all, found the people that we did naughty stuff with and told our secrets to. And I certainly would never have told those secrets to my parents.
No, right. And I think that's one of the things that makes Pinky Swear so relatable, or will once it's out in the world, right? Make it so relatable for so many people because no matter what, if you were a good, a good kid growing up, if you were a kid who maybe didn't reveal that much to your parents, regardless, everybody has that experience of sometime in their past, in their youth, needing to keep feeling like they had no choice but to keep a secret from someone, whether it's a parent, whether it's a friend, teacher, whatever. And that's like a universal experience that we all have had.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like to our point earlier, things can go horribly wrong in fiction and maybe hopefully not so horribly wrong in the real world, but the scenario that you create where it just spirals and spirals, and there are so many moments where as a reader I felt if one of these girls had just called in, like phoned up their mom or dad and said, okay, I need help, here's what's
Yeah.
going on. But you don't want to do that first
Yeah.
of all as a writer, because that just, again, like that sucks all the tension out of the
Yeah.
situation, right? Like you want that conflict, but also it's so believable, it's
Yeah.
such believable conflict because you buy that these girls would not, especially these particular girls, they would not in that scenario reach out to a parent because
I
they're
don't
just in
think,
too deep, they are
yeah.
way in too deep.
I think that's right. I don't think any, and it is right. It's because you see the first misstep and you think, well, now you could, in that moment, maybe you could have talked to a parent, right? But from the very beginning, like everything that happened was like the sort of idea that there was some parent that any of the six parents they had to choose from was trustworthy enough to, approach was sort of not an option. So it's fun to play with. And I think it is. I think it actually, I feel like it is, it does seem like a universal experience that something bad happens and if there isn't an adult, a responsible adult to turn to, which often there isn't, right? Because parents are so busy now and so, preoccupied and so strict in ways that they think they're doing the right thing, but oftentimes maybe in the end they're not. Anyway, it's interesting too for me to look at it from the perspective of the parents of those children. Like they're not
Yeah.
in the book really. I mean, they show up, but for me to sort of like imagine what it's like for them down the road, right? Because
Yeah, I think it's another level of stress for us as parents reading about these kinds of scenarios.
yeah,
Like it really hits close to home because we have like you and I have like teenagers or young adults, right? And so you read about this kind of situation and we're right there thinking, just call someone, go
yeah,
talk, go talk to your dad. But
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
they
right. Your parents won't
wouldn't
be
have done
angry
it.
enough. It won't matter. You'll get through it. It'll be okay. But it isn't a decision that you make. And also, that's a teenage brain. The brain is
Yeah,
not fully
exactly.
developed, clearly, as we know
Yeah.
also.
And I think kids build, teenagers, young adults, they build it up in their minds to be like such a colossal like challenge. How are you gonna, if you do decide to tell a parent, how are you gonna do it? What could happen? I mean, of course, it's like immediate worst case scenario thinking, right?
Yep.
Is they just don't know how their parents are going to react. They might think they know. And I like to think that most parents would surprise kids in situations like that and react like in a more empathetic way than maybe the kids are anticipating. But
No.
you don't know, really depends on the parent. It really depends on the relationship and how transparent that relationship is.
Right. It really, exactly. It totally depends. So, and it was actually really fun. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the dynamic between the three girls, and it felt like a dynamic that I, in some places, in some moments, had experienced as well. Okay,
Yeah.
so now we are inviting our listeners to add. Oh, that's not my book. That's so funny. That's a that's a Killer Women book that will be on the show in a while. This is my book. And we're inviting our listeners to add their own Pinky Swear confessions
Great.
for kind of some fun. If anyone's up for that challenge, which, sometimes we're like, nope, not going to share that stuff. And I get that too.
What? It's the cone of silence. We're in a safe
Exactly.
space here, guys.
We've
It's
all
not
been in
that
it.
public.
Yeah, exactly. And also, it's hopefully something that's in the far, far past. So
Yes, exactly.
Don't share
Yeah.
any crimes. We don't need to know about those.
No, it's time to chase those skeletons out of the closet, guys. If we can do it, you can do it.
Exactly. Tessa, thank you so much. It was super fun to talk to you today on Pinky Swear Confessions.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations on this amazing book.